Hello, lovely, and welcome back to this week's episode. So, today we are diving into what I feel is one of the most misunderstood parts of business growth. And this is the difference between growing a business and scaling a business. Now, if you have ever felt stuck wondering why your business isn't quite hitting that next level, or you're working harder but not necessarily earning more, you're going to love this episode. Here is the truth. Growing and scaling a business are not the same thing. And knowing when to shift gears is everything if you want to create real momentum without burning yourself out in the process. Now, the previous episode, I talked all about my story about getting burned out. And so if that is something that you have had or suffered with or are moving in the direction of, go and catch the previous episode. It is going to be eye-opening and hopefully helpful for you to really slow down and stop working in a way that is moving you towards burnout. Now, today we're going to break down what each phase really looks like, what challenges are normal at each stage, and how to start moving from that worker bee mentality to the queen bee energy in your business. So you're not just building more, but you're building smarter. So if today's episode lights something up in you and you're ready to get real clarity on how to scale to multi-six figures without sacrificing your schedule, your sanity, or your soul, then you're going to want to check out my free new masterclass called Life Changing Income. So just click the link in the description to join us and start creating the business and the life that you actually want. So if it is your first time here, I am Suzanne Actison, and I'm so happy that you've found me because I help women just like you grow and scale to their first $20, $30, $50,000 a month in ways that help you feel like you're not losing your mind or sacrificing everything that means something to you along the way. Because to be honest, it really is just not worth it and it's not necessary. So if you're in the growth phase of your business and trying to get to your first $10,000 a month, or you're now trying to scale to $20, $30, $50,000 a month, this episode is for you. And it's likely you found yourself at some point, or maybe all the time, hustling, posting content nonstop, launching back to back, starting the month with $0 in your recurring revenue and wondering where the revenue and the income is going to come from, and still not making the money or having the freedom that you want in your business and that you started the business for in the first place. And so today we're going to dive deeper into each one of these areas. And it's important to watch both the beginning, even if you are at the beginning, and right through to the end so that you can understand the differences. Because I also see a lot of women who are making more than $10,000 a month and are very much stuck in the early phases of growing. And these shifts that they need to make and that you might need to make are going to be highlighted in both sections of this video. So today we're talking about a huge misconception that's keeping so many of you stuck in the grind. And that's the difference between growing and scaling your business. They are very different things and require different inputs in order to get different outcomes. And unfortunately, what is going to take you to your first 10K isn't necessarily going to take you to your first $20,000 or $30,000 a month. But don't worry, you don't have to throw everything out when you reach 10K and start over. These are the building blocks. And in order to become the person who can scale their business, you need to go through the 0 to 10K journey. Otherwise, you stand to skip or miss so many essential elements of these foundational building block days. And it's kind of like a person who wins a lottery, who one day has a windfall. We hear time and time again about how these people who win the lottery go to lose everything or spend it all really quickly. That's because, one, they didn't have the strategies to earn this money in the first place. And two, they don't know how to behave when they had it. So they stayed stuck in their scarcity ways of the past. And when you don't change who you are being, you'll attract more of what you had, which is often what lands them back to where they started without the millions that they won. And trust me, I personally learned the hard way. A few years ago, I had just crossed over $250,000 in revenue in my first business, but life didn't feel like mine. I was working late. I was constantly thinking about my business. I was missing family time, and I was hustling my way into burnout. I thought that doing more was going to give me more, And the opposite was actually the case. I realized I had grown a business, but I hadn't scaled it in a way that supported my life. So today I'm going to help you avoid that path because you can build a business that makes incredible money and life-changing money without sacrificing your sanity, your schedule, or your soul. So let's start with the first stage, and this is all around growth. This is the phase from zero to your first consistent $10,000 month. And we're going to go back to the metaphor of planting a garden. It is like you are tilling the soil. You're planting seeds. You're figuring out what grows where. It is really hands in the dirt work. And honestly, it's messy and beautiful all at once. But here's what I see all the time. Women jump into selling and posting and launching, but they've skipped some of the foundational work. They're trying to grow something in really rocky, dry soil or really clayey soil like I have. And the most important element that's missing are really solid roots. And without those roots, everything feels hard. And I get it. You want to get your thing, your service, your product into your client's hands. You want to sell it and earn some income. So that is naturally your first port of call. But too often than not, when you jump past some key foundational pieces, they're going to come to trip you up down the track. And here's what needs to happen at the growth stage. And these are the exact puzzle pieces I teach inside my lab program called the Life Aligned Brand and Growth Accelerator. These are some tangible things that you can focus on. And trust me, I see so many women who are over the $10,000 a month level that are missing some of these key stages. So listen up no matter where you are in the growth spectrum. Getting clear, number one, on who you really serve. So not just women or entrepreneurs, but the real person you're speaking to. Knowing your ideal client is the most important, yet skipped over part that affects your offers, your content, your delivery, your marketing, your messaging. It affects every single part of your business, and doing surface level ideal client work can keep you stuck for a long time. Another cardinal issue I see at this growth stage, and what often comes back to bite people in the scaling phase, is putting their products and service together using a very single-minded approach. That's either they create it based on something that they do really well and there isn't always a need for, or they create this service or offer just to fill a gap or a need that they see in the market, and it really isn't something that they want to be doing or selling for the next 10 years. So my client, Jessica, was a former HR, so human resource executive, who spent a decade developing training programs for corporate teams. When she started her business, she automatically gravitated towards offering her HR consulting and employee training programs because it was her area of expertise, is what she could do with her eyes closed. While she was really great at creating training materials and facilitating workshops, she realized she was essentially recreating her corporate job just with more administrative work. And during client calls, she found herself really mentally checked out, kind of dreading the thought of creating another handbook or compliance training. Even though her deliverables were professional, her lack of enthusiasm, like genuine enthusiasm, made it really difficult to market herself authentically and truly connect with potential clients. She was making money, but the thought of doing this for the next several years was leaving her so empty and totally uninspired. Now, creating offers that fill both a gap in the market and light you up is essential in a life-first business. So not only does it help you show up authentically for it, but this alignment will be magnetic, and your offers and your services or your products that you create will actually sell so much more when they are energetically aligned. There are so many other elements of creating life-aligned products and services that you need to consider, but this is a really great starting point that you can reflect on to make sure yours is set up to succeed. The third example I want to give you that is foundational and absolutely helps you scale when this is built out the right way is to have a strategy that's not overly engineered or overly complicated. I see so many women building out programs, offers, and services that are really complicated that when we go to scale them, they need to be pared right back. In your growth phase, it's best to focus on one high performing offer before moving on to build anything new. I know the temptation too well because I've done the same thing. As a generator in human design and an Enneagram 3, I love creating things. So there's a strong tendency to create new things instead of optimizing what you already have. And when I first started out my coaching business, I thought I needed a course, I needed a digital offer, I needed private coaching, I needed a mastermind. But honestly, to do any of these things well, you need a big team to help you manage these things. Now, this is something I see many women making 10K a month doing, except they're not keeping any of the profits because $9,500 each month is going out the door to pay for their team. So, getting some of these foundational elements bedded down is essential not only for your growth and earning a good income, but also to being profitable and for your business to be built for the long term. Inside my program, The Lab, I guide you through all of this. It's where you build your roots, good, solid brand building puzzle pieces, I like to call them. So you're not just flinging content out there, trying to sell without a strategy, marketing to the wrong person, and most importantly, so that when the growth comes, it's solid and sustainable and isn't a 1 month wonder. So if you're not making 10K months consistently, your work is in this season, and that's okay. Every thriving garden starts here. I will just say there are a couple of other elements that are important to mention that change the game for me and also play a big part in the success of my clients. And this first one is not trying to do it alone. It's not just because I'm a coach that I'm saying this, but it really does play a huge part in your success because as you can see, there are a lot of different moving parts and a lot of things to consider on a daily basis. So doing it alone can feel really slow, really frustrating, and expensive as well. And doing it in community with biz besties or with a coach is just less against the grind and so much more fun. Investing in your business is essential to grow so that you find your people and make sure you're getting feedback on the work. Otherwise, you'll be trying to grow like with blinders on. Now, the second little bonus element that I want to mention before I move on is that your business will not grow simply on strategy alone. The other part is how you believe and you behave, which is often some days a lot more than 50% of the equation. And whilst I'm not going to go into too much of this today, I have a lot of other episodes about this energetics piece, and we'll be talking more about this in my content in the coming weeks. I did talk about this kind of CEO or queen bee energy back in episode 49, which isn't too far back for you to scroll. Now we're going to shift gears from this growing stage into the scaling stage. And this is a stage where I see a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. There are a lot of plateaus that are reached around 7, 8, 9, 11, $12,000 a month. And this is because of the fact that so many of the factors that got you to this level are not the things that are now going to take you to the next level. Scaling is really what happens after you've gotten to 10K months. And here's the key. The strategies that helped you grow won't help you scale. So going back to our garden, this is where you stop watering everything by hand and start actually installing an irrigation system. You're no longer just planting, you're designing a system that runs without you constantly being in it. When I go on holiday in the summer, sometimes maybe a month, I have a beautiful garden. I have an irrigation system in there, and sure, I have someone who also comes and checks on it, but I have a system that allows it to grow when I'm not there. It isn't sustainable if I don't have that, and I'm always needing to be sitting there watering it by hand. And sure, as I said earlier, we are always building and we're not throwing out the hard work that we've done, but what got you here strategy and energy wise will often not get you to the next level. And I'll explain why this is, and this is why this is also a stage where so many women get stuck. So I see a lot of women in this $8,000 to $12,000 a month range that get stuck because they think this, I just need to keep doing what I'm doing, but do more of it. But more content, more one-on-ones, more launching, more time, more energy, it's not sustainable. And that mindset, that is exactly what stalls your growth. Now, as Alex Hormozy says, whose strategies I love, but whose bro style isn't really my match, he says, the inputs that build the first level of your business are not the same inputs that will build the next one. Now, here are some of the reasons why those early stage strategies stop working. The first one is that you've relied on hustle instead of systems to get you to that first 10K. It's the reality. You have to really kind of hustle and grind. And whilst I love to build up entrepreneurs from a very early stage without hustling, you do have to do a lot of work. You got to put in the reps. You got to sometimes grind the gears. In the early days, you are the business. That works when it's small. But if you're still duct taping everything together and wearing all the hats at 10K months, it's a recipe for burnout. And as Hormozy says, don't build a job you can't fire yourself from. The second thing is that you focus on effort instead of assets. And here's what this means. Early on, it's really about showing up every day. You do lives, you do posts, you do sales calls. But long term, you need to build assets for your business that sell for you. So scalable offers, content engines, automated nurture sequences, refining messages that converts on repeat. So these are the things that really help you scale without you always being on the job or at your desk. The third thing is that quite often in those early stages, you were very reactive because you had to be and you weren't very strategic. Now, again, Alex Hormozy said most entrepreneurs think they have a marketing problem when they actually have a clarity problem. In the growth stage, it's all experimentation. It's a lot of trial and error. But scaling demands intentionality. You need a real strategy, one that aligns with your business and your life. And that's why I built the simplified strategy framework so you can pare back to what actually works and scale what's sustainable. And so here are the 3 shifts I'd like you to focus on if you are at this stage and that you can walk away with today. The first one is to simplify and optimize your business model. So I want you to look at your offers, which ones are draining you, which ones are scalable. I've had clients with 4 or 5 different offers come to me, each one bringing in some revenue, but none of them were really optimized to scale. When we focused on just 2 of them, initially we wanted to kind of spread the risk and not just go down to 1. And then what we did end up with was ultimately 1. My client went on to double her revenue and make it so much easier to deliver. So these are some of the things to look at. Is your pricing structured to scale, or are you still trading time for money? Is your business model aligned with your values and your long-term vision? So it sounds foundational, but to actually do this well is experienced entrepreneur territory. I coach high-level women on this all the time as it's a place where I see the biggest gaps. We're conditioned to fall back into that default mode, into that hustle mode, into that sacrifice mode. So having someone who can not only call you out, but also call you up is key for this so that you're operating as a CEO or queen bee instead of falling back into that frazzled worker bee mode. And I see this all the time because entrepreneurship is like peaks and troughs. There's certain months that are really good, and then there's certain months that are not so good. There's certain days that are good. There's certain days that are crummy. And you need to be able to even out this trajectory so that it's not so peak and trough. And really having an aligned vision and values equation absolutely helps you do that so that when things get tough, you don't completely spiral and go off the deep end. And this is something that you do need to practice and learn, is something that I do inside my programs. We talk about inside the life-changing masterclass, really being able to shift this kind of behavior. It is often at a subconscious level. It takes learning and it takes integration and practice. The second shift I want you to be able to walk away with today is that you need to create a scalable structure and delivery. This is another important piece of the simplified strategy framework, which is all around structure and deliverability. It's really important to ask the questions of yourself and your business. Can my offers be delivered without you doing everything? And are you the bottleneck in your growth? I want you to think, can this still run if I walk away for a week? If not, it needs to be reworked so that you can step away, or at least have some sort of structure so that you can step away for a week or 2 and everything doesn't come to a grinding halt. And so the third shift is all around automating and systemizing. Scaling your business requires that you stop hand-holding and sometimes controlling everything in your business. I know this can feel really hard at first, and whilst women at this stage want it, they sometimes struggle in actually handing over the reins and end up being the actual bottleneck in the business. Sometimes this involves growing your team. I am a huge fan of having a really lean team and the right people in your business. Otherwise, your business can go backwards because I've seen it. We want growth and scale and people who can complement our skills and enhance them. So there's things like we want to automate onboarding and nurturing and content and delivery where possible. We want to use tech and simple tools that give you back your time. We want to hire really strategically, even part-time or fractional, that take things off your plate. Because remember, scaling isn't just about revenue, it's about freedom. To step away, to travel, to be with your family, to actually have some breathing room. So here's the truth and what I want you to walk away with today. Growing is about planting, scaling is about sustaining and continuing to plant once and reap the harvest. I love my perennial flowers that I planted last year or in the past years that come back and surprise me every single year. Growth at that early stage takes hustle. It's lots of planting, it's lots of tilling, it's lots of hand watering. Scaling requires clarity, it requires simplicity, and it requires systems and a new way of you behaving. The first absolutely gets you results, and the second gets you the freedom that you started your business for in the first place. And the women I work with are building gardens that bloom. They're planting those perennial flowers, and they don't want businesses that absolutely burn them out. And so if you are ready to scale to your first six figures without sacrificing your sanity, without having to be hand watering, without having to have a jam-packed schedule or sacrificing your soul in the meantime, then I would love you to come to my free masterclass where I'm going to be diving deep into all of this. Like I said, it's called Life-Changing Income because we all know that to earn $20,000 a month is absolutely life-changing. It is the reason I am sitting here. It is my mission to put more of those $20,000 months into your hands. And I love working with women and making the life-changing impact that this work really makes. The link is in the description to register. It is going to be a class that I'm going to be running live very regularly. And if this video has helped clarify anything for you today, I would love you to like it, to share it with a fellow entrepreneur, to make a comment here, and of course, to subscribe for more content just like this. I can't wait to connect with you on the masterclass, to hear from you here, and to see some of your shares out on social media. Thank you for joining me this week. We'll see you again next time.